It's 4 o'clock on a Monday, and you know what that means. It's time for another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live. This week, starring special guest star Mr. Steve Barden. And welcome to the big show. Hello, Steve.
Hey, Michael, how you doing?
Good. I'd come over and shake your hand, but I am in tight quarters, buried behind my laptop about 3 feet away from Steve, and you will not see me on camera this episode. I am very, very grateful to Steve. Oh, I should get the chat room open. Hello, chatting people. How are you guys? So I'm a little nervous doing a remote, but Steve was very gracious to open up his home and say, come on over and do this. And his wife is downstairs with their numerous cats who may be visiting us during the show. And I just can't believe how generous he is in saying, yeah, come on over. So I think you guys in the audience are going to have a ton of fun, and I know we are. So anyway, let me tell you off camera, but I can see my levels are nice and healthy. So Steve has been a Taxi member for what, like 7 or 8 years now?
2009? No, wait, 8 or 9?
Yeah, so
something like
okay,
that.
So around 7 years. He's done many publishing deals, a bunch of different libraries. His music now plays on TV virtually every day of the year. He still works as a computer programmer, an app developer, but like so many successful members, he's finds the time, to do production music. He's scored a bunch of films, does animation projects. He's done some TV commercials and even authored a couple of books, which is a whole other conversation I want to have with you sometime. So I interviewed Steve, I don't know, probably 3 months ago for the Taxi Transmitter, the passenger profile section of the Taxi Transmitter, and I was just so blown away as I'm sitting there reading his responses to everything. Steve spent a great deal of time working on it, worked really hard. It was very obvious from like 4 paragraphs in, and I just thought, what a perfect guy. He's relatively close to the office. He's like a half hour away from our office.
Oh, that's the reason. I'm close to the office.
And I thought, so many people still send emails saying, I just can't get off the dime to do an instrumental cue. And I know that Steve's primary instrument is guitar, anything with strings on it, but he does keys as well, and he does arranges several types of music. And I called him up and said, hey, what do you think about me coming over and doing a swampy instrumental cue? And he said, sure. So I was rereading the interview this morning, and one of the things in the interview that I loved was, because you guys know that I'm always talking about music as your retirement fund, and Steve said in the interview, as a source of income, doing production music is part of my retirement plan. It's something that I can continue to do until the day I die. It's one area of the music business where you don't have to be young and beautiful to be successful. And as you and I would probably both agree, being young and beautiful doesn't even guarantee success anymore.
Not anymore.
I think the library business is probably a better bet. But Steve's credits are so long that I can't read them all, but I will tell you, I'm going to go down somewhat of a list here and tell you that just about anything that Oprah Winfrey has touched or produced, Steve has had music on, including The Oprah Show and her Oscar special, and Oprah, Where Are They Now, and The Rosie Show, and let's see, Dr. Oz, Nate Burka Show. He's had stuff on ABC, CBS, Fox, ABC Family, bunch of stuff on Duck Dynasty on A&E, bunch of stuff on A&E period, American Heroes Channel, Animal Planet. By the way, not only do Steve and his wife own 5 cats, they had, what's the guy's name, Jackson?
Jackson Galaxy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were actually on an episode of My Cat from Hell, so not only do I write music for reality TV, I'm actually star in it.
That's right. No, your cats were the star. You were just incidental. You happened to be the owner. He's had stuff on the Biography Channel, Bravo, Cooking Channel, Discovery Channel, Food Network, G4, Game Show, HGTV, Investigation Discovery, Lifetime, MTV, National Geographic, Outdoor Channel, Oxygen, Science Channel, Sundance Channel, Style Channel, TLC, Travel Channel, True TV, VH1, just
We
on.
only have 90 minutes here.
Yeah, on and on and on. He's had stuff on radio. He did some music for the Mark and Brian show, which if you live in LA, that requires absolutely zero explanation. If you don't live in LA, just know that for many, many years, Mark and Brian were the kings of morning radio here in LA. He's done, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 short films. He's done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 TV commercials, industrial videos, and written 2 books, The Low G String Tuning Ukulele, which, yeah, we need to talk about that, and Songs for Little Cowpokes. So without any further ado, once again, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Mr. Steve Barden. Yay! All right, so what we are going to do is, there's that page. Okay, so the only corner that we're really cutting today is that Steve actually wrote this stuff. He emailed me earlier today and said, hey, is it okay if I do a dramedy cue as well? Because I don't think it's going to take that long to do the swampy cue. I said, great, even better. So he's composed these cues. He already knows what the melody and the chord changes are. But other than that, he's going to start from scratch and just kind of explain it as he goes. I'll have the chat room open. I'm going to mostly let him work, and maybe at the end of certain parts, I'll grab some questions from the chat room, and at the end we'll do general Q&A.
Yeah, sounds great. Sounds great.
Okay, so let me double check and make sure the chat room guys are all happy. There they are. Awesome.
Did I tell you that I was nervous about doing this? But nobody's watching, right?
Right, nobody's watching. I'm nervous about doing it because, as you guys know, my computer is less than wonderful. But, you know, I mean, it takes a lot of courage on your part because you could hit a bad note.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me.
But, you know, I mean, it's more about the process than it is nailing every note. And I just so badly wanted, mostly for our newer members that are songwriters, but thinking, geez, I should be jumping on you know, doing some instrumental stuff. I want them to see how it's done. So Steve clearly knows what he's doing. And so tell everybody what you want to do for the Swampy Cue.
Definitely, yeah. So Michael asked me if I would do some Duck Dynasty style cues, guitar dobro. And I said, sure. I mean, I've done a handful of those. Even though guitar is my main instrument, I don't spend a majority of my time doing guitar-related music. I really don't do pop music. I do orchestral style music. And the past several years, I've been sort of specializing in dramedy, which is pizzicato. It's, you know, the Desperate Housewives sound. Like
That's the reference everybody uses.
Exactly. They're still using that reference. You know, mallets, xylophone, marimba vibes, and that's, you know, that style has been going around since Desperate Housewives, which is what, 10 years or more.
Yeah, and it all comes from the housewives being on Wisteria Lane being sneaky.
Right.
You know, tiptoeing around the rose bushes, peeking into windows. What would you hear?
Exactly. So that's been my primary focus for a long time. But I have done some simple guitar cues, from just simple strumming and finger picking kind of stuff to this guitar dobro kind of stuff. And I'm not a tremendous dobro player, but I play slide well enough.
I'm sorry, then I got to go. Bye. Sorry.
But, you know, here's the thing, is that I've done a handful of these cues, and that they are being used, and some of them, you know, a lot. And I just think, you know, I mean, and you'll hear my abilities in playing, and if I can do it, there's a lot of guys out there and gals that are, you know, much better instrumentalists than I am. So, you know, if I can do it, you can do it. It doesn't take a lot. So the first thing we're going to do, we're just going to do a simple guitar and dobro track. And if you read my interview, one of the things I said that I like to do is come up with the title of a track before I even begin. So it kind of keeps me on track to what I'm writing towards, you know. Because when you're writing production music, you're not writing the picture. You don't know what scene you're writing for. You're just writing in a generalized way.
And you have to think about the mood or what you're trying to
Exactly.
accomplish and stick to one thing, right?
So basically, you're writing a mood, you're writing an emotion, and so for this cue, I decided we'll create something sort of generalized, and I like to consider it as something that would be an establishing piece of music. So it establishes a locale or the characters in general, or kind of just what's going on. So you get the flavor of, if you're Duck Dynasty, you're anticipating a certain kind of sound.
Mm-hmm.
So guitar and dobro totally fits that. You could also add, mandolin and banjo, and a fiddle, and those things would certainly work in a lot of the things. But you could do something very simple with just guitar and dobro.
And they seemingly can't get enough of that stuff. Because, as I said in my opening speech at the Road Rally last November, I think I counted 9 shows or 11 different shows that took me about 30 seconds to find, and they all use swampy instrumentals. And oddly enough, not one of them has ever called me to do a Jews harp solo. Not one. Just going on record now.
I got your number. I'll let you know.
It's hard finding them in the right keys. Okay, so you mentioned the word an establishing a location. Explain that a little more, because a lot of people who are new to film and TV music might not even think in terms of what that means to establish something.
You got to think in terms of, you're coming out of the main titles of a show, you're coming back from a commercial, and you just, the characters aren't going to just start talking right away. There's going to be a moment of some musical build-up to try to establish what's going to happen in the scene.
Mm-hmm.
So it's generally sort of mundane. Musically, it's really not a lot going on, but it just sets a tone.
All right.
That's
well,
all it is. So
let's set a tone.
Okay, so I start with a title. So this one is Puppy Monkey Baby.
Okay.
No. If you saw the Super Bowl, that was a big commercial. No. So this one is called A Duck's Life, since we're going with the Duck Dynasty theme. So basically what we're going to do is, because we don't have a feed into the Ustream thing, what we're going to do is you're just going to hear what I'm recording at the time. You won't be able to hear the combined tracks until I play it back over the speakers, so bear with me. Here goes nothing. Oh, I'm gonna do a open D tuning. I have to turn my chair a little bit. Okay, so I have a click track in my headphones, and I'm going to be playing to that. And what we're doing actually doesn't require a click track, but for me it's going to be useful. Okay, we'll go on. Okay, that really sucked. Okay, without any more. And just to keep things moving, normally I'll write cues for reality TV to be about 1.5 minutes.
Okay.
For the sake of this show, I'm gonna keep them about at 1 minute.
Okay.
just to keep things moving. Because like this, I'm going to do this one over because this was really bad.
Okay.
So you guys don't have to suffer too much. Here we go, one more time. This time with feeling. Success.
All right. So I saw people mentioning on the last one that they could hear the click through the headphones. Obviously, that would leak into the mic. Oh, by the way, what kind of mic are you using? Because it's almost not in the shot.
It is a Gauge ECM 87.
And I didn't put you up to that because
No.
Shirley's my closest friend, right?
Nope. I actually bought this at the rally several years ago.
And awesome mics, aren't they?
Yeah, it's a really nice mic.
It's
It's versatile and it works. It's really good for acoustic guitar.
Yep.
So
okay, so how would you normally deal with the click bleeding in? Would you just turn it down less?
That's a really good question. In my demos that I did and I tested them, while the guitar is being recorded, you're not hearing the click.
Right.
But when I hit that last chord,
Ring out.
you're going to hear the click.
Okay.
So normally what I would do would either be record, this is the built-in click on the DAW, and I would either record a separate click so I could, and I would time it out. That's why I use a click track, and so I know how many bars I'm going to play.
Right.
So when I hit the last note, the click stops. Sometimes, depending on the style of music, for an acoustic guitar track, I might use a shaker because I can still hear the rhythm, but it's not as obtrusive and doesn't really bleed as much. But I'll play a little of the beginning and then at the end, so you can kind of hear the if we're getting the click bleed. Go to the end. Okay, so we do hear the click only at the end there.
Yeah, and barely.
And barely. Another thing I might do is just use this as a rough track and then take out the metronome and then play to that.
Right.
Just use the count in and then just play to that, and that's my metronome.
And you mentioned earlier that you have to have a click just for your own benefit when you're laying in another instrument because you got to have some sort of count. I mean, you could do a verbal count, I guess, but
yeah, that's why it's nice to have somebody who's laying out a rhythm like a drummer or some kind of a percussionist. Guitar players are notoriously bad at playing a steady rhythm.
Really, I didn't know that. Don't tell Steve Cropper. So just for the edification of folks who are kind of new to this stuff, which frankly, I'm doing the show mostly for newbies today, but I'm glad to see a lot of our regulars in the chat room. Steve is using the ECM 87 by Gauge as his microphone. He's going into an M Audio interface, and then going into Pro Tools.
I'm using Cakewalk Sonar.
Oh, okay.
And we can begin the DAW wars.
All right.
Why am I using Cakewalk? I've been a Cakewalk user since version 2.0 in DOS.
And what are they up to now?
Well, this was back in the late '80s when it started. So I've
Okay,
been
so you know it
continuously using it and just learning the new features as it goes. For me to stop and learn a new program, there's no point.
really well. Right.
And honestly, all the DAWs are pretty much the same. They
Yeah.
all do the same things. They all achieve the same things. Some are more geared towards, like Pro Tools is more geared towards audio recording. This, Sonar is great for MIDI. Pro Tools is not strong MIDI.
Right.
Um, honestly, the best DAW is the one you're used to.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's all.
And what are you doing as far as EQ, compression, anything going to tape, quote unquote?
No, I just record flat the way it comes off the mic. If I had problems with the room, sometimes I'll just, like, if the guitar was much closer to the mic, it
Right.
would probably be more boomy. I try to position it so it sounds good. So I just listen. It's trial and error. If it sucks, I can totally add some EQ and kind of fix it.
Sounded really good on playback.
As they say, fix it in the mix.
Yeah, but just on for a straight in record like that, when you played it back, I was sitting here thinking, man, sounds amazingly good.
Yeah, well, we'll see now what it sounds like when we add another instrument and see if the blend works. So I'm going to play a dobro. And let me just say one thing about the dobro. Where's my slide? If I don't find my slide, we're in trouble. Here it is.
So you could always use the Rockstar can. Steve actually has a stash of Rockstar here, which is appropriate.
I rated the rally. This is a resonator guitar, which is the technical term for a dobro. Dobro is a brand name. It's the name of a company. So it's the same way we refer to Kleenex.
Right.
All tissue's not Kleenex. All moving elevators are not escalators. All hot tubs are not jacuzzis. Okay.
Right.
This happens to be a dobro.
Okay, a really nice looking one.
Gibson bought the Dobro company some years ago. This is it's called an original Hound Dog, which was the first model they made when they started 100 years ago. And I've had this instrument for about 10 years. And when you called me up to ask me to do this, I went out and bought new strings, and I changed the strings.
For the first time in 10 years?
In 10 years.
Wow.
I don't recommend it. I'm just telling you that's what happened.
Okay.
Okay. So we're going to lay down a melody part on dobro. All right, here goes nothing. All right, well, that was not awful, but it was,
A ringing endorsement.
it was mediocre.
Well, like I said before in my email to you, and maybe to the members, it's not about perfection today. It's about the process.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and I'll try to keep that in mind. But let's just go ahead and play it back and see what you all think.
Folks in the chat room are going wild.
Okay. So one thing I want to show is an example of you don't have a dobro, but you have a slide, and you can achieve similar results with just a steel string acoustic guitar. So I'm going to redo that dobro part, but just on the acoustic guitar, and kind of give you an idea of, the characteristic tone of a dobro is
Right.
really unique, and you expect it in certain type of genres. But you'll hear a difference, but you could actually get away with it.
So you just saved a lot of people $1,000.
Exactly. You're welcome. Okay, here we go.
Well, I gotta say, I could pack up and go home now, and you could go back to doing whatever you do in your normal everyday life, because people are already getting the point of the show, which they're saying in the chat room, wow, now I see how much I'm overcomplicating things.
Ah, okay.
Which is so true. I mean, yeah, go ahead and play that back. Let's hear the slide on the acoustic.
And it's funny because the idea of the resonator is that it has a speaker in it, and the intent was originally just to make it a louder guitar.
Yeah.
It has quite a different tone, and it doesn't record as loud as the Ovation does.
Interesting.
So this track is going to be a little bit hotter. But anyways, let's take a listen.
Awesome. Yeah, people are loving it. So now, what would you do if you were going to submit this to a library? What would your next step be?
Well, obviously, this is just sort of a tutorial way of presenting this, but I mean, obviously, I would go back and perfect these performances because there were some bad notes, and especially with guitar instruments, I wouldn't use something like an auto tune to fix it. You just make it right. If you are playing a slide and you've never played a slide before, make sure that the slide part rests on top of the fret wire, not the middle of the fret like where your finger would go, but over the fret wire. Because otherwise you're going to be a quarter tone flat.
I think that people are concerned when they hear the sound of the slide against the strings, and some people would try to take that out, which is it's impossible.
You can't, and it's also characteristic of the sound. So when you're getting this,
right?
This is vibrato on the string.
Yeah.
Okay, now these are round wound strings, so you're going to get that a little bit more. But even on the raw string, if you can hear that, it's you don't hear it as much, but you're still hitting metal against metal.
Yeah. I personally think it's like hearing a singer breathe. I've done that where I've had to go back and take out breaths between every line on a record, and the vocal sounds unnatural after you do it.
Yeah.
There's something about the humanity of the process.
It's something you're not going to get that as much on a sample library. But you do need to remember, though, that once your note dies out, it doesn't last forever, and if you're still adding vibrato, all you're getting is the noise.
Yeah.
You know, you can get the note vibrato and then stop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I strive for a clean performance in this. You know, I would spend a lot more time working on that.
Right. Like I said, today's about the process more than it is perfection.
So this is a simple track. It's really just two instruments, and also do is go back and try to find a good balance between the instruments, and if there's any if the EQ, if they're fighting certain frequencies, I'll try to balance those out a little bit. But I usually don't have to spend a whole lot of time because the characteristic of the two instruments are so different. They're really not going to fight each other too much.
And the amazing thing is, in 15 minutes, you just laid down a cue. Yes, it was only a 60-second cue and not a 90-second or 2-minute cue. And yes, it's got some bad notes that you'd go back and fix. But I'm assuming with another 10 or 15 minutes worth of work, this would be a finished cue.
Yeah, and it's, compositionally, I didn't spend a lot of time on it.
How much did you spend, would you say?
30 to 45 minutes. Not a lot of time.
So all in all, this is like an hour's worth of work.
Yeah, and I chose the drop D tuning because I wanted a pedal tone to go throughout. So it's just this constant D sound. Most of my dramedy or reality style cues, I write in formulas, and I write in ABA format.
Explain what that is for the newbies that don't know yet.
So you write a piece of music, maybe it's 8 bars or 16 bars or whatever it is, and you call that the A section. Then you write a new piece of music, another 8 or 12 or 16 bars, and that's the B section. And then I'll go back and repeat the A section, so that format's ABA. And in this song, the A section is just a D chord all the way through, and the riff, what's the word? That's the key to the song.
motif or
yeah. So that's the spacing out on the, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So that's just working around a D chord, and then the bridge, I'm still working with a D bass, but I'm going from a D to an A minor, just to change it up a little bit. I could have spent a little bit more time trying to make more of a melody, but it's more about establishing a character of the show, a locale.
Right.
Because I'm not writing a theme, really.
And you don't want to make your piece of music so complex that it distracts from dialogue, which we put in the listings a lot, nor do you want to make it so amazingly good that it becomes the star of the scene, right?
Right. Yeah, you want to keep things a little bit in the background. Now, this piece, you could put a melody, a singer, or some other instrument playing an actual melody, because the lines I was playing on the dobro was really just filler.
Mm-hmm.
And if you had written a song with a melody, you would give them that version, and you would also give them a stemmed version, which is, let's take the melody off and then just give them this, so it's just the guitar and the dobro.
Somebody asked earlier in the chat room, what's a stem? And this is a great time to have that conversation. So as Steve was just explaining, that if he had a melody part on here, they may want just the the original guitar and the dobro part, but without the melody. So he would give him a full mix with all three elements, and then give him another mix where he just merely mutes the melody. And he could also just give them, I guess, in theory, the melody guitar on its own, which would be a stem. Or he could give them the rhythm and the melody, which would be another stem. Or
if I were to turn this in, if it had a melody, I would give them the non-melody version, which is guitar and dobro, and then I would also give them just the rhythm guitar part.
Right. And that way they can edit back and forth. So let's say that they come back from commercial and they show a picture of the sun coming up over a swamp. And you've got 3 to 5 seconds of that, and then the boat with a couple of gator killing guys comes into the shot. And now you want the melody to come out because there's going to be dialogue. Well, you don't know that as the composer in advance.
And they can pull out that piece to allow for the dialogue.
Right. So now the editor he's a video editor, but becomes a music editor as well, and a mixer, a post mixer, to some extent. So that's the purpose of stems, is to give them the flexibility to let the other audio, which would be dialogue or a voiceover, or could be the sound of a boat motor that becomes predominant in the scene, or a truck going by or something.
And because I don't want this to walk all over dialogue, I'm actually choosing notes that sort of sits between the female talking register and the male talking register.
Interesting.
So most of the notes are, D and C. And hopefully it'll stay out of the way.
It's interesting that you bring that up because, many people wouldn't even think about that. But you've been doing this long enough now where you've probably gotten feedback from publishers or other people that you write with and what have you. So now you know that. That's the kind of insight that a newbie wouldn't get.
Well, I've noticed when I go through all my cue sheets to see what songs that they've used and which versions, I find out that a lot of the time I spend a lot of time crafting these amazing melodies in my mind, and it turns out that they use the ones without the melody because it's probably conflicting with what's going on.
Interesting.
So, I start thinking about, well, maybe I really shouldn't spend so much time on something that they're just going to throw away.
Does it hurt your soul as a musician to quote unquote dumb things down, or?
At first, yeah, because your ego's involved, and it's really important to just start paring things down and just deleting stuff. I will always do a take where I'll play all the way through the tune, no matter what instrument it is,
right?
Clarinet or bassoon or whatever. I'll play, and I'll just start taking stuff out, and just all of a sudden it opens up more because you got everybody playing at the same time, and then it's just junk.
Harder to mix. All of a sudden you've got to start worrying about EQing one thing so that it doesn't compete with something else.
Yeah.
And simple is better.
It's all about our ego. We work so hard to write these things, and I want everybody to hear this, and you're in the wrong business.
Just cash the check, Steve. Just cash the check.
Exactly.
Getting paid to do what you love, that should soothe the ego to some degree, I would think.
Absolutely.
And to hear your music in a show, that 1.8 million people are watching at the same time you're watching it.
The first time you hear your music, because on reality TV, a lot of times the music is so buried in the background.
Yeah.
But your tune, you'll hear, you'll know, you'll recognize it. So it's a very exciting thing.
Does your wife have bruises on her ribs from you going, "That's me, that's me"?
Oh, we'll watch. Because I've had so much music in The Little Couple, she's watching the show. She's enjoying the show.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's mine. Oh, that's mine. Because I'm really just listening to the music, and she's watching the show, and I didn't hear that. So.
Yeah, my wife is now being trained. I'm teaching her how to think like a music supervisor, and she's not involved in the music business in any way, shape, or form, nor does she really care. But she's always kind of loved Taxi, and she works at Taxi from time to time, like getting ready for the road rally and stuff. But she doesn't know about music supervision or cues and what have you. And lately I've been laying it on a little thicker. And so now with the advent of DVRs, I'll pause the show and go, okay, what kind of cue is that? And she'll say rock, and I'll say, no, background instrumental. Yes, it was rock, but it was background instrumental. And not only was it background instrumental, honey, but where did it come from? Jukebox. Okay, so that makes it source, right? And she's learning this stuff, and I think she's learned about as much as she wants to at this point. But it's really not rocket science. It's so much of it is common sense.
It's not, but you kind of have to understand what the business is and why you're creating this music, what it's going to be used for.
Right.
It's rarely do we get an opportunity where our music is up front and you really get to hear it.
Sad but true.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could have 1,000 cues and then maybe one day have a theme. And that would go a long way to satisfying that ego, musician ego part.
Yeah.
Especially if the show runs for 10 years and you have the theme.
Exactly. So I will mix these tracks down as I perform them today. I won't change anything else. I'll just try to get a good mix, and I'll upload them on my SoundCloud, and then I'll post a note on the forum, and so you guys can listen to it.
Great. So as you're, and in a minute I'm going to take questions about this, then we'll move on to the second
Sure.
cue. But so now if you were going to mix this, obviously it's 2 tracks, and really it's just finding a level and letting it roll pretty much because you played your own dynamics as you were laying it down. But
I don't think I'm going to have to do a lot to fix things.
And so how would you export it then? What would you export it to? How would you deliver the file to a library? Those kinds of technical things.
Well, most libraries want a file that's a 48K file because that's the format that video uses. 44.1 is for CDs, but 48K is what you're going to have on TV. So some libraries want 48K AIF files and some want WAV files. It just depends. I'll always do, for my own reference, so I have on my phone, my iPod, an MP3. And I'll mix 2 versions. I'll do one at 32 kilobits per second. I'm sorry, 320. The highest rate I can get, so it sounds close to the WAV file, and also one for that's at 192, so I can submit them to taxing.
We get this question a lot. It's like, why do you guys have us submit MP3s? Well, the industry standard for moving music around so that people can hear it and decide if they like it is MP3. And at the point where a library likes it, they would contact you and say, send me the WAV or send me the AIFF, right? So I don't think anybody has ever lost a slot in a library or a show because somebody heard an MP3 and went, oh my goodness, I can hear that's an MP3. They'd say, just get me an audio file.
But occasionally they'll actually use the MP3 in the show, which is, it's like they just don't have an ear. They don't know any better. It happens.
Reality TV is pretty guilty of that, I think.
Yeah. And, honestly, they mix it so low that they probably figure nobody cares.
Only the composer probably really cares, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, any questions for Steve? Somebody's asking no drums or bass.
Why?
That's a great answer.
Yeah. You know what? You could certainly add drums and bass. You could add a number of other things. On the next track, I'm going to kind of talk about that a little bit more. But yeah, you certainly have a lot more stems, possibilities that way. But yeah, if you can do it, yeah, do everything, and then just do all kinds of different arrangements of it.
Somebody asked a question, will there be a part 4 of the Steve interview and the taxi transmitter? And the answer is yes, I've got enough left for a part 4. And if I don't, I'll just use bigger pictures of him. That's my technique for keeping things simple. What about a shaker or a boot stomp? Is that something that you might put on a piece like this?
I would be careful with a boot stomp. It depends how you're using it, because it could just ruin a whole track, depending on how it's used in the scene. Constant stuff like a shaker, any kind of constant rhythm is good, but just make sure that you're able to provide stems without the percussion.
I think it might have been Russell just asked the question, and now I'm trying to go back and find it. Oh, here we go. Are both of these instruments going to be mixed in mono on this particular track, and is the reverb going to be different between them, or will there be any reverb at all? Is it even necessary?
Boy, when I did my demos, I didn't put any reverb on them. There's a lot of room reverb. I'm not in a real studio. This is just a spare bedroom, and it's not really soundproof, so it does get a lot of kind of some room.
Ambience.
Ambience, yeah. So probably not. Very little, if at all.
You guys would be heartened to know. So many people think that you've got to go out and spend 20 grand or 50 grand and do all this amazing stuff. I mean, Steve's studio, he doesn't even have a rack. I'm looking around the room. He doesn't have a rack with any outboard.
We're going to have to swing the camera out so they can see the studio.
Okay, so there's where the cats hang
There's
out.
the cat tree.
There are the neighbors out there. Steven's studio. Whoops. We have a lamp.
Leg lamp.
A leg lamp, yes, getting in the shot. A second computer in the room, but most importantly, there's me. You don't want to see me. Okay. Steve actually has a vocal booth, and this is what, like a 10 by 10 bedroom, 10 by 12, something like that.
10 by 10, and this is a 4x4 sound vocal booth.
And did you buy this prefab, or did you make it from scratch?
No, I bought it prefab.
Okay, so it just goes to show you don't need a lot. You just have to be good with what you've got.
Yeah, and actually, you're talking about reverb and recording quality. Normally, I would be recording it in that booth, and not sitting out here in the middle of the room, because of the bright walls and stuff. In that case, because the booth is very dead, I would probably add some kind of ambience to it.
Well, I've got to say, sitting here listening to the actual instrument in the room and listening to the playback, I'm pretty blown away. Considering you use no EQ, no compression, you're using $150 mic on sale, $99 at the Road Rally. It sounds amazingly good.
It doesn't really bleed the mic.
Yeah.
We don't get a lot of outside noise. We got a busy street right out here that we're not picking any of that sound up. We have the air conditioner running right now because it happens to be a hot Los Angeles day for winter, and usually you'll pick up some of that blowing of the fan.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'd have to hear back in headphones to really listen to see if it's. But
certainly no video editor on a reality show is going to go, oh my gosh, I can hear Steve Barden's air conditioning running.
Right.
Because they would never have it mixed loud enough.
Probably not.
Anyway. All right, a couple more questions, then let's move on to the other piece. Russell Landworth says, vocal booth, don't tell Ron and Chris Murphy. I didn't know Ron doesn't like booths.
Is he against him?
Apparently. I don't know. I know him pretty well. I never knew that about him. Ronan's come out of the booth, apparently.
Okay.
Question, what materials were used to build that 4x4 vocal booth? Insulation, drywall? It was prefab.
It was,
right?
Yeah, it was already made. It's this particular one is vocalbooth.com. Not an endorsement, I'm just telling you what it is.
But it works, right?
It works great.
And how hard was it? It came flat in boxes, I'm assuming?
Actually, I bought this used
okay.
from somebody. I had to drive down to San Diego to get it.
Wow.
It was $1,000. And it comes apart at the four walls. And it's heavier than you would believe. It's like carrying a grand piano.
Wow.
Yeah.
Lead-lined walls.
Yeah. and getting the poor moving guys bringing it upstairs, they were not happy.
And they brought it up assembled?
No.
Or it came in sheets, flats?
Each wall is separate, and the ceiling and the floor are separate.
And how does it go together? Does it have like hinge pins or something that?
Velcro straps.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. All right. Well, it fits in the room. Steve's got. It's a 10 by 12 room. Everybody's got a 10 by 12. Probably the most common room size in all of the United States, and everything you need is in here. to
Yeah.
me is mind
You know,
blowing.
I do everything in the box pretty much. Because I don't do a lot of microphone recording. I do everything with sample libraries. So I don't need a lot. I'm running 3 computers for my orchestral libraries.
Okay.
Connecting them all through Vienna Ensemble Pro.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a pretty simple setup. I just have one small 4-channel audio interface, a couple of nice Mackie speakers, 88 key keyboard.
And no treatment to the room other than the fact that the vocal booth has some like carpeting or textured fabric on the outside.
Yeah, we did put a little Orlex foam in the windows just to try to keep out the sound of the street from time to time. My wife is a voiceover actress, and she uses the booth way far more than I do.
I didn't know that that's what your wife and I have to hang out. I used to run the largest like voiceover mixed to picture studio in the country, and then moved out here. I was the general manager of LA Studios in Margarita Mix.
No kidding.
Yeah, that was pre-taxi. Anyway, cool. I didn't know that about your wife. All right, so let's move on now and do the other tracks. So tell them what you're planning on doing.
Oh, right. Okay, so, the first one, like I said, it was just kind of a basic setting the mood of the show. So it's just really simple. But what I wanted to do on this next track is something more akin to what I've been doing with the dramedy tracks. So this one, and as I name tracks based on an emotion or, something, I wanted to do, which dramedy is based on, is mischief, like you mentioned earlier.
Right.
Okay. So this track, I came up with the title "Ducking Around."
Which, okay, so if you're an editor and you're going down a drive looking for stuff to use, and you've got somebody peeping in a window, and that would draw their eye to your track to get it listened to.
That's part of the goal in naming tracks, is that they will see something and go, "Oh, that's kind of clever." And I totally get it just from the title what it's all about.
Right.
Unfortunately, a lot of libraries will retitle your tracks just because they want their own title on it. So they might call it...
Replace the D with an F.
Messing around. Fooling around. Exactly.
It's funny, when I had music supervisor Frank Palazzolo on stage at the Road Rally this past November, he said he's completely, just doesn't give a damn about the title of a track, but and a lot of people in the audience are going, ooh, ah, because they know that I encourage our members to come up with great titles like you do, so that people know what they're about to hear. But he said it doesn't influence. And then I realized he's doing TV dramas, and he's not looking for cues. He's using songs. So it's a different form of the art form. But I still contend, as much as I love Frank Palazzolo and think he's an incredibly smart and really talented music supervisor, I go with Steve's methodology for naming the tracks if I were doing it. Just it improves your odds by 5%. Why not?
You know what? Even if it increases it by 1%,
yeah.
I mean, they may not care at all, but why not make the effort?
Yeah.
Because for some editor, it might make all the difference in the world.
What was the title you said originally for the last track that you did? Monkey Puppy or something?
Oh,
the Super Bowl inspired one.
Puppy Monkey Baby.
Right, so nobody would know what the hell that was.
Right, if I named it that, it's funny to me because it was a stupid commercial, but yeah, that would be a really bad title because it has no meaning. It doesn't represent anything about the music.
And what was the title you gave the track, ultimately?
I had a working title of Duck Amuck, but I changed it to A Duck's Life.
Okay, so there you go. I mean, especially if you're working on Duck Dynasty, that's really going to get your attention.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so tell us what you're going to do now.
So I'm going to create a track that's basically a rhythm guitar track, a dobro track, but I'm also going to add a second acoustic guitar track that's going to sort of represent what I would do in the orchestral dramedy, and that is the pizzicato strings.
Okay, I can't wait to hear how you execute that.
Full disclosure, I just came up with the idea of doing the pizzicato part today, and
Okay.
I hadn't worked that one out, so we'll see what happens. But when I write, I just sketch out really like chord changes and basic melody things, and that's what I create. That's what I work off of. So, okay. Oh, and I do have to bring back the D to E. Okay. Here we go. There's a loud truck going by. Everybody heard that.
I'm sitting here with the biggest smile on my face right now because as Steve's laying that part down, there's a garbage truck out there. And we all know garbage trucks are loud, and you can hear this guy. He's got his backup beeper on, and he's dropping garbage bins. So I'm curious to see if it shows up in the track. I mean, obviously, if we had it cranked up enough, you'd hear it. But
Yeah. Now, that one was also a track that could deserve a second take, but for the consideration of time, I'm just going to let it go for right now.
you want to give the garbage truck his due. I mean,
Um,
the guy's like literally probably
Yeah, well-
75 feet from where we are.
let me listen back. You know, I don't hear it.
Amazing.
Well, we can wait just a minute to go by. Any questions while we're waiting?
All right. Let's see. Adriana says her mic picked up geese flying over the house a couple days ago. I guess it wasn't hunting season, or you would have heard more than geese. Seriously, I think that guy in the truck knew that we were doing the show and scheduled his drive-by just as we're working.
He's waiting out there. Oh, he's right across the street. Yeah, the joys of living in the big city.
Yeah.
Well, let's just
Rob
give it a
Spencer
go.
says his garbage truck sounds can usually come out of his guitar.
This may be a case where I will redo that first guitar part after the show,
Okay.
just to get a cleaner part. I don't know, maybe the garbage truck will be a good ambient sound. All right, let's see if this works. Okay, I'm going to go with the dobro part, and then I'll come back. And then I'll come back to the pizzicato part because I actually haven't worked that out on what I'm going to do yet. All right, here we go. right. Well, a little pitchy. Not terrible.
They don't call you One Take Steve for nothing.
I'm not sure if I should consider that an insult. Okay, so let me play back those two parts.
Sorry, you got my ah in there.
Well, I slammed the slide on the neck of the guitar. So both those tracks, I'm going to have to redo. I can't release those to the public.
Okay, that's all right. For the purpose of what we're doing, they're fine. The unusual thing about it is when anybody hears like a dramedy cue or a mischievous cue, they would normally think of something being done on a keyboard with pitsy strings, and you're absolutely. I mean, this sounds mischievous.
Well, that's the thing I mentioned in that interview we did is that I kind of learned that as long as you adhere to the color palette or the set of instruments that is typical of the show, you could do almost any style. As long as you commit to it, and you know you can pull it off, and it'll be believable. I mean, I could do some James Bond jazz on it, and it would still work.
If you were doing this for Duck Dynasty, it could very easily be used in a scene where one of the wives is bringing home a dress or a purse or something expensive that she shouldn't have bought, and she's sneaking it in the house while he's got his face buried in the refrigerator, and she's tiptoeing behind him to get it through the kitchen and upstairs without him seeing it. And
Totally.
Context of the show, because it's acoustic and dobro, and it sounds sneaky.
It could work. This might be a case of where it's it's too complex of the melody. I might have to pare it down a little bit or deliver a version without the dobro. But I'm going to do a pizzicato part, and hopefully because like I was just pretty much playing whole notes on the acoustic just chords, and the pizzicato is what's going to keep the motion going because I don't really have any kind of percussion.
Right.
Like a snare drum or anything else that would keep it moving. So let's see if we can do that with the acoustic guitar. And as I said, I have not decided what I'm going to do on this, so we're going to be making this up as we go along.
We won't tell.
My motto for today is what could go wrong. Well, that was interesting.
Let's have a listen.
And this is basically how I compose. I'm going to just sit down and try something. You know, I can kind of imagine what might work. And then you listen back and go, no. Because I started off with some pretty low notes, and it might just be too low in the register for it to make any sense. Okay, so immediately, I would say that sucks. And I would not use that.
Okay, the part period.
It just doesn't work.
Okay.
There's too much going on between the dobro, and I'm not just strumming whole notes. I'm bum 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 bum.
Right.
So there's actually a lot of movement going on in there already. So I think it's just not going to work at all.
Yeah, you know, one of my golden rules is just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Right.
So somebody asked before, so would you mix this in stereo or mono?
Always stereo.
Okay, and how far? The next thing they're going to ask is full left, full right, dead center. Do you use 10 and 2 at all?
You know, because I do mostly orchestral stuff, and that stuff is typically panned the way an orchestra is set up, I don't have to worry about it. But for any kind of band stuff, I mean, there are typical things. You know, we just had this discussion with Matt Hurt the other night about he was showing us a mix that he was doing on a track where he was doubling some vocals and stuff, and he had this really cool idea about hard left and hard right for these vocal parts, because he felt that those are things that are going to kind of stand out because they're so far out in the mix. You know, if they were dead center, they're going to be kind of blending with everything else. So if you want to highlight something, kind of give them a wide spread. Okay, I would never have done that. Typically you consider melody instruments like to be in the center.
Yeah.
And you do slight panning of secondary instruments, rhythm guitar, piano, or something, just slight like a 10 and 2. Rarely would I ever do something hard left or hard right.
Really, it's funny. I was always a hard left, hard right kind of guy. Unless the mix wasn't working, then I might bring some stuff back into 10 and 2. But background vocals, because back in my day, like the Eagles were king. And so I would do one pass of group vocals, usually around an Omni mic with all 3 or 4 singers together, and then double it and pan them hard left, hard right. And on rare occasions, I might even do a third pass and bring it up the center. And my whole point was trying to create this silky, like horizon of background vocals. But nobody does vocals like that anymore. It's so rare that you hear group vocals that have that silky multi-harmony thing. More often than not nowadays, it may be one harmony part on top of the lead or something like that. So
it's a lot of trial and error, and basically it's what sounds good.
Yep. Somebody had another question that's gone now. Can't remember what it was. So, all right. So if you hit this loggerhead that pizzicato part just doesn't work. Oh, I know what the question was before somebody asked, which is the A section and B section, this are much different than the A and B section from the other one.
Totally.
Almost two different attitudes or two different emotions. How would you get away with that? Does that fly in the face? Does that make it less usable because you've done that? Or would the editor just say, ooh, I really like that section and stick with that?
I don't know if I've ever had it work against me. I do a lot of stuff where I do like a slow to a medium first part, and then the middle section, just crank it up 16th notes. And it adds a lot of excitement, and then it gives you somewhere to go when you bring it back down to the original slow tempo. My experience is, these cues in reality TV they're going to pick out a piece anywhere between 8 and 30 seconds. So even though I'm giving them a 90-second cue, they're not going to use the whole thing.
Damn.
The longest cue I think I ever had used was like a minute 10, a minute 15. That was nice.
Yeah.
Because it almost ran out.
Wow.
I didn't have enough of a cue. I don't know. I think you just kind of do something that it makes it kind of interesting to them. I think their ear would turn up. Oh, that's really interesting. And maybe they just use that bouncy part.
Could you do pitsy strings, like violin, on a cue like this at Swampy?
Sure. Totally. Yeah.
Would it be hard to do that right now? You'd have to fire up other stuff. Could you lay that?
Well, I was going to do one thing that I thought about this, and like someone asked about doing bass and drums and stuff.
Right.
I'm going to do a bass part, but I'm going to do it on a tuba.
Okay. Cool. Okay.
Because a tuba to me is funny.
Yeah.
You get kind of that. It's almost kind of that drunky sound.
Right.
And you get kind of a blat sound to it, and it could kind of work. But I'm only going to use it in the middle section.
Okay.
Okay. So. And I can do this live, so you guys can hear it. Can you hear that?
Fairly low on my meter. That's a little better.
It's about as loud as I can get.
All right, Adriana says, yep, we can hear it.
Okay. So I'll just play from the beginning, and then I'll just jump in on the bridge with it.
All right. That was cool.
Yeah, I had some real timing issues on the guitar parts. When you hear it with the click.
Well, feel free to go back and lay down another one. It'll make you feel better.
If we have time, yeah, I would. I have to do them.
Yeah, I know if you don't, that you're going to call me tomorrow and say, Michael, it's killing me that the show is up there like it. So go ahead and fix it because you're being so gracious to let me come over and do this. I don't want you to suffer for it.
Exactly. All right. So I'll just play a few bars before the tuba. might notice a lot of reverb on the tuba,
Right.
and that's the mics in that particular setting for that orchestra. This is Cinebrass Pro I'm using. So what I'm going to have to do is jump over to that contact instance and go in and change the mic settings to a close mic.
Got it.
So I can get rid of some of that room sound.
Right, because it sounds inappropriate with the guitars that are 4 inches.
It's inappropriate. It just sounds like it's in a totally different space.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't work. But it's cool.
But the part is cool because it adds comedy to the sneaking around.
Exactly.
That was a good call.
Tuba works. I like tubas. I like bassoons and contrabassoons for that kind of thing. Especially when you get the really low notes. It just adds a lot of humor. Funny instruments. Okay, so are you game? Let me redo a part?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We've got plenty of time, and I want you to feel good about this.
Okay. I'm going to put these guys to sleep.
No, they're loving it.
And you know what? I'm going to have to do a quick tune because I have new strings and. And I do use the old school Boss tuner. Yeah, they do have the built-in tuners on these DAWs, but I just never use them. Okay, so I'm just going to delete that track. All right, here we go. All right, I think it's still have a little tuning from there. All right.
The audience is loving this. I'm getting comments like one of the 3 best shows ever. We've probably done, I don't know, 150, 200 shows at this point. So thank you guys. On Steve's behalf, I thank you because I'm loving this as well.
Okay, let's redo the dobro part.
Okay.
The best part about a home studio is that you can take as many takes as you want.
That's right.
All right, here we go. Hold on. Oh, okay. Sorry. That was a good take, too. That was good.
Yeah, the lost ones always are.
Yep. Okay.
Russell Landwehr says, lay people get bored with this stuff. I'm riveted. It's look, I know all this stuff. I've seen all this stuff. I'm around it all day, every day. I'm fascinated sitting here with you. So again, thank you for taking the time and doing it. All right, let's.
If you give me just 1 second,
Sure.
I'll go over and fix that tuba.
While Steve's doing that, comment. Paulie says the show's got me on eBay again, looking at 3-string box guitars right now.
Where are you, tuba? Oh, here it is. Okay. Yes. Okay. We're going to go with.
Oh, that's right. You're going with the close mic.
Close mic.
Direct tuba.
Oh, let's turn up the volume. Okay, so it still has a little bit of ambience of whatever hall this was recorded in, but it's a close mic. I could look for other tubas, but I think it's probably okay for this application. Let's just take a quick listen to this section. Okay, so because this is MIDI, I'm going to quantize that track because I can.
Okay. It's funny, somebody asked earlier on the last track if you were going to quantize, and everybody was like wagging fingers going, no, you can't quantize that. But in the context of what you're doing here, it makes perfect sense.
For the tuba, yeah, certainly. I would not try to change anything with the other guitar performances because that's what makes it human.
Right.
If it's really sucky, like in the first versions of it, I had some bad timing issues, so I just redid it.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to listen to the tuba. Boy, that is a noisy recording, that close mic.
A lot of valve.
I'm not crazy about it, but I might go look and see in the contact library what they have, and there might be a tuba that would just work even better.
Yeah.
I'll look at that tonight. But see, that's the nice thing about the MIDIs. I can just swap out an instrument. Okay, so let's just hear from the top with everything. is what it is.
Okay. And people are asking, and please don't send me a bunch of emails or email Steve. Yes, he is going to finish these. He will put them up on SoundCloud, and sometime in the next few days, I'll send out an email that has a subject line like Taxi TV viewers, here are the Steve Barden finals here. And we'll send you to SoundCloud. So, I mean, again, for the purpose of this show, it's not about perfection. It's about the process and just showing how incredibly simple it is to do this. You don't need to spend 8 hours on an instrumental cue. Want to take some questions from the
Sure,
audience?
absolutely.
All right, guys, hit us with some questions. We've got a little bit of time left here. Yeah, you are hearing through the camera, guys. Definitely not direct. Okay, question. What is your work schedule like? Do you always work the same hours, like 9 to 5? Now, and I think that this person is asking about your day job, as it were.
Oh, okay, yeah. I have a 9 to 5 day job. I usually get home about 7 p.m. because it takes me an hour to drive 10 miles in LA. Have dinner, watch a little TV, and then I might have 2 hours in the evening to work on music.
Okay, and how many
On a
evenings a
school
week?
night.
What?
On a school night.
On a school night. Okay, and how many school nights a week do you work on music? Every night or most nights?
I can't. It would kill me to work every night. If I have a project, if I do 2 weeks of 2-hour weeknights and then 4 to 6 hours on each weekend day, after 2 weeks, I'm dead.
How many pieces do you have out there in the world in various libraries?
Not that many, 300.
Okay, so yeah, that's not that many.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the best libraries to be associated with? We're not going to
The
get
ones
into
that
that.
get you jobs.
Yeah, there you go. And just so you know, Steve's answer, which I kind of stepped on there, was the ones that get you jobs. Library A may be great at getting you placements for swampy instrumental cues, whereas they may be terrible at getting you orchestral placements or some other genre. So really, it's almost, you can't just say this library is great because nobody seems to be great at all things. Other questions? His resume is too long to list here. How many placements does he have? Ballpark figure on number of placements?
We asked that in that interview. I forget. Placements.
Yeah, as much as I love the interview, I don't remember
Yeah,
now
it was-
because I edited that part before,
Yeah,
I think.
don't know, it was like 2,000 or something.
Okay. How long would it typically take you to mix a cue like that?
Oh, like this?
Mm-hmm.
We're done.
Okay. There's your answer, guys.
Not a long time because there's not a lot to it.
Right.
Yeah, there's probably very little EQing, probably no compressing. It sits in the mix pretty well as is.
Yeah, I mean, and the amazing thing to me is I'm sitting in the room hearing the guitar as it's being recorded and hearing it come back through the speakers. It's remarkably close. Yeah, people put far too much effort into the wrong stuff sometimes. I'd rather see somebody take these same instruments and record 3 cues in an evening that are different moods, different tempos, but using the same instruments for the same end purpose ultimately than spending 3 hours mixing
You
a
can
single
spend
cue.
way too much time doing this stuff, and ultimately it's not going to matter. If the vibe is right with the tune, then it'll get used. Unless there's something blaringly obvious about a bad mix. I mean, most of the time, it's just going to work. Either they're going to use it or they're not. So, I wouldn't. What was the saying? Don't sweat the petty things.
Yeah.
And also don't pet the sweaty things.
I'm not even getting close to that one. When you're creating so many cues, what's the best way to copyright them? In groups?
You mean like the Library of Congress?
Yeah, that's
Uh,
it.
I don't do that anymore.
And Steve's not alone. Steve just said, I don't do that anymore. And I would say a lot of my friends who do instrumental cues don't bother copyrighting them. And that's, I'm guessing, because you're not that worried about somebody stealing a cue.
You know, we live in a litigious society. Do you want to spend all your time with a lawyer going to court over a song that's going to make you $200
Nope.
over the course of its lifetime? It's not worth it. Just write another track.
I think that's great advice. Could you cut these down as in 15, 30-second, various versions, or would you have to re-record the shorter cut downs?
Yeah, it depends on the style of the tune. I think in this case, I would need to write it to fit that length. It would be difficult to edit it,
Mm-hmm.
and it depends on the library. Not every library asks for those. Because I watch a lot of commercials, and a lot of the music just fades out.
Yeah, having mixed, I don't know, maybe 1,000 big TV commercials back in the 80s. I did what I called the Ssl Auto Fade. Where the SSL's got an automated master fader you can program in a time, and we would just have it do the fastest dump you could without a hard cutoff.
Mm-hmm.
Because to this day, when ad agencies reach out to us for songs, they generally don't want a buttoned ending on it. They just let it go to fade, and they're just going to slam the fader down.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, Gloria's right. Steve is talking about copywriting cues, and somebody brought up, yes, everything is copyrighted the minute that you, did I say that right? Yeah, copyrighted, not copywritten. I made that mistake on a show once. Got a bunch of emails about it. Yes, everything is copyrighted the minute you commit it to paper or a recording medium, but it's registering the copyright the registration is what you would go to court with. But I think Steve's point is well taken, that why would you spend potentially tens of thousands of dollars litigating something that might only generate a couple $100 in its lifetime? Even if it generates a couple $1,000, it's not worth spending 10 or 20 grand to litigate over a cue.
I guess the other side of that is if somebody's suing you, saying that they wrote it.
Right. They probably wouldn't bother. And if they did, you could just write them a check for what the cue has earned and then take the cue out of the library in question.
Right, yeah.
There are ways of dealing with these things. But we're not lawyers and we're not giving legal advice. Let's cover our butts by saying that. Okay, 2 more questions because we're about 5 minutes over here. Come on, somebody's got to have a question. They're now debating copyrights. You know how the chat room gets.
Right.
How do you collect from the PROs if you don't register? Well, that's a different kind of registration.
Totally different. Yeah, it has nothing to do with copyright law.
Somebody wants to know if you sing.
I do.
He does.
I don't. I was going to give you the CD. Just, I joined Taxi because I had recorded an album.
Right.
And I had just gone through a divorce, and I just met my current wife, Leanne, and I had a lot of stuff to say, and so I wrote a bunch of songs, and I recorded this album, and I was going to give this to you because this is why I joined Taxi.
Okay.
Because I was going to be a songwriter.
Right.
And I learned quickly on with submissions that the kind of stuff that I was writing was not commercially viable. It's not like
too personal.
Yeah, completely. And
right.
I'm really not the greatest singer, to be honest. But I just had stuff I needed to express.
Right.
So I was going to give it to you anyway. So you can
awesome.
check
Thank you.
Out. But yeah, you can go up on. Gosh, you know what? Because I had this put out by CD Baby. CD Baby takes all their stuff now and they put it on YouTube. So you can. So now I don't make any money.
So many TuneCore, CD Baby. all these guys now. I can't think of the right way to say this. I'm getting either takedown notices on episodes of Taxi TV or people monetizing the music that I've played from Taxi members on episodes of Taxi TV. Somebody may have sent it in when it was not yet in a library or published by a publisher other than their own publishing company. And then they put it out in the world through TuneCore, CD Baby, what have you. And all of a sudden, now I'm getting takedown notices on old shows of Taxi TV. So it's kind of scary to me. It's like I can't do any shows anymore. I had to quit doing shows where I was using reference. Like sometimes I like to do a show where I play music from that a music supervisor will post a list of their favorite stuff that they've been listening to lately. And I think that's a really good education to kind of stay hip to what music supervisors like. But I can get away with it, it seems, on Ustream, but definitely not on YouTube. So you'll see episodes of Taxi TV where my lips are moving and there's no sound coming in.
Well, so the point is you can go to YouTube and listen to that whole album. If you see me at the rally, I'll give you a copy of the CD, but I have to limit it to the first 900 people that ask me. Because that's how many copies I have left.
Well, now you've got 899
Right.
because I am the proud owner of one, which I will be listening to as I take the 12-mile drive back stuck in traffic.
Yeah, it'll take you forever.
Question, is your Q writing goal just for fun / hobby, or do you intend to replace day job eventually?
Oh, totally. Yeah, that's my retirement plan, because like we talked about earlier, that's something I can do until the day I die.
Yep.
I can, and I'm hoping that I can retire from my day job at some point and just work on music.
And Leanne and your kids will be able to, someday when you're gone, because that day will come eventually, your heirs will be able to receive income from, what I am not a financial advisor. I am not giving financial advice, but I think it's the greatest retirement plan in the world.
Yeah, it is. And, my income has steadily rose as the more and more cues I get put in libraries and get placements. I'm still making money off of stuff that I had in there 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Because you asked me how many cues I have in libraries. I've got about 80 or 90 dramedy cues that are making the majority of the money that I'm making.
The 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
80% of the income coming from 20% of your stuff. Let's see. What's the most you've earned from a Q piece total? I think that person means from a single placement. How much was the biggest dollar amount you got from a single placement?
Over its lifetime?
Probably. Well, let's give them a single use, and then maybe an estimate of how much over the lifetime of that same
some
piece.
cable networks pay better than others. Like TLC pays horribly. Oprah Winfrey's network pays really horribly. E and MTV pay pretty well, and so this, like the stuff I've had on the Kardashians and Snooki and JWoww and shows like that, they tend to pay a lot better.
And they don't pay sync fees up front. This is all just back end stuff.
It's all back end, and it depends if they list your cue as a background piece or as a theme, and they'll consider it a theme if it's like the very first cue they have in the show. So I've had a few of those, and those are really nice. And then there's 4 different time slots. There's the prime time slot, and then there's the middle of the night, and then there's the AM, and then there's the afternoon. Well, the prime time is the one that pays the best.
Because the audience is biggest.
Because the bigger audience, yeah. So there's a lot of variables that go into that. So if you get a theme and you get it on a prime time and one of these better networks, I've probably made like $120 on a single placement.
And if it's on an MTV show that syndicates around the world, even better. I know that not all their stuff syndicates all over the world, but some stuff does.
Totally. We just the ASCAP international royalties just came out yesterday.
Yeah.
And my biggest country, region that paid the most was the Netherlands.
Really? Very interesting.
Usually it's Canada.
Yeah, Netherlands, I mean, tiny little country with a relatively small population. You would think that the payments would be measly. Maybe it was backlogged or something.
Well, yeah, I mean, it does take a while. It's like these are stuff that I had for like a year and a half earlier in domestic payments. And now foreign payments, start trickling in. And the foreign, they actually pay quite a bit better than ASCAP and BMI pay domestically.
And you get, if your stuff ends up in a film, you get paid for theatrical use.
You get theatrical there, you don't hear.
Right.
That's really horrible.
Yeah, I've heard from taxi members have had stuff, even in a relatively small film that went international, where they ended up making quite a bit of money from the theatrical performances outside of the U.S.
If you get a cue in a film, you better hope it gets played on TV a lot.
Yeah. All right, guys, we're almost like 15 minutes over, so I'm going to call it a night. Steve, thank you so much, man. This is just... First of all, thanks for taking off of work early. Thanks for letting me come into your home to do this. And thank you for having the courage to do it, because I know a lot of people would be scared to death. And I'm going to say it one more time. It was not about Steve hitting every note right today. It was about showing the process. But I promise to let you guys know when he's got the finals up on SoundCloud, I will let you know. Check out his website at stevebarden.com. That's STEVEBARDEN, stevebarden.com. You can hear a lot of his music. Does that link to your SoundCloud page from there? Or do they have to find you separately on SoundCloud?
You know what? I should probably do that.
Okay. Well, how do they find you on SoundCloud?
Just search for my name.
Okay, so just search for Steve Barden on SoundCloud. Thank you very much to all you guys for watching. Steve, thank you. I appreciate this more than you'll ever know, and I can't wait to go home and watch the episode tonight. Think of all the questions I didn't ask you,
right,
that I fully intended to, and with that, we will see you next week on another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live.